My watch strap had been wrapped twice around my wrist, and my ticket was pressed against the gray tray like it might dissolve if I looked away. Shoes removed, electronics separated, liquid sealed in the required pouch. The security line crawled forward in that familiar shuffle where passengers pretend they're invisible to each other. I kept staring at the departure clock overhead as if my focus alone could make time move faster, because this wasn't a vacation. This was survival. My grandmother's estate hearing was scheduled that afternoon in Cascade County. The will, the property, the moment when a judge finally assigns ownership instead of leaving everything suspended in grief. And my siblings had been circling that hearing like predators since we buried her, dropping comments like, "Don't worry, we'll handle everything. You'll just complicate matters." They wanted me absent. They wanted me delayed. They wanted the judge to notice an empty seat where my name belonged. The tray moved ahead, and I stepped toward the scanner just as a uniformed official moved directly into my path. Not a regular TSA screener, not someone in the standard blue uniform, but an actual airport security officer in dark navy with a measured expression that felt too calculated for routine screening. "Sir," he said, keeping his voice low but audible, "you need to come with us." For a split second, my brain rejected the words. Me? I glanced behind me, expecting this was meant for someone else. He didn't budge. His colleague shifted closer, positioning himself at an angle the way trained personnel do when they're prepared to prevent sudden movement without making it obvious. My chest tightened, but I kept my tone controlled. "Can you tell me what this is about?" I asked. "We have some questions for you," he responded. "It needs to be now." The line behind me went silent in that particular way airports do when attention fixes on someone unexpectedly. I felt eyes shifting, phones possibly recording, people already constructing the story they'd tell later. I looked at my tray, my belongings, my boarding document, suddenly empty-handed in the most exposed way possible. "I have a connection," I said carefully. "You need to come with us," he repeated. His colleague spoke then, gentler. "Just bring your identification if you have it." I reached into my carry-on with deliberate movements and pulled out my driver's license, holding it between two fingers so nobody could claim I reached for something else. They guided me to a small room off to the side. Glass walls, a metal desk, a chair bolted to the floor. The kind of space designed to make you feel like you've already done something wrong. The officer took my ID, examined it, then looked at me again. "Is your name Marcus Chen?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He nodded once and opened a tablet. The screen illuminated his face as he scrolled. "I'm going to read what we received," he said. "Then you can respond." I didn't interrupt. I didn't plead. I didn't ask him to understand. Because I've learned something about authority. The fastest way to lose is to give them emotion when they're asking for facts. He cleared his throat. "We received a report this morning," he said. "Caller states you're traveling today and may be a threat." The word threat made the room tilt. "A threat to whom?" I asked. He glanced down. "To the public," he said, and kept reading. "Caller states you made statements about getting revenge and that you might attempt to cause an incident at the airport." My skin went cold, not because the accusation made sense, because I knew exactly who would use that language. My brother loved vague words that sounded serious and couldn't be disproven in a sentence. Unstable, dangerous, threat, words that give institutions permission to slow you down. I kept my face neutral. "Who made the report?" I asked. The officer hesitated just long enough for me to know the name would matter. "I'm not going to discuss that yet," he said. His colleague watched me closely, like she expected an outburst, like she'd been told to expect one. I didn't give her that. Instead, I said, "I'm traveling to an estate hearing for my grandmother's will." The officer's eyes lifted. "A state hearing?" he repeated. "Yes," I said. "If I miss it, my siblings get what they want." He didn't react to that, but his colleague's expression shifted slightly, like she'd heard this story before in different circumstances. The officer scrolled again. "The caller claims you recently made concerning emergency calls and that you've been reported previously." I felt my pulse change, slow and heavy. Emergency calls. That was the indicator. My siblings didn't just want me delayed, they wanted a record that could follow me into a courtroom. Unstable relative, questionable behavior, safety risk. If they could plant that now, they could walk into a state court later looking like the responsible ones. I leaned forward slightly, hands visible on my knees. "Officer," I said, calm, "pull the emergency call record right now." He blinked once. "What?" "Pull the emergency call record tied to this report," I repeated. "The original call that triggered this, the actual caller information and the recording, not a summary." His colleague frowned. "Sir, that's not always—" "It will be there," I said, cutting her off without raising my voice, "because whoever did this is counting on you not checking." The officer studied me for a moment, then tapped his screen and shifted his posture like he decided to test me. "All right," he said, "let's see." He opened a different panel. Incident details, dispatch notes, call history. I watched his face as he read. At first, he looked neutral. Then his eyes stopped. His thumb quit moving. His tone changed, not dramatically, just sharper, more careful. He looked at his colleague and angled the tablet slightly away from me, like he didn't want the security cameras catching the next part if the glass reflected it. "What?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer her immediately. He stared at the line on the screen again, like he wanted it to be something else. Then he looked back at me. "Mr. Chen," he said slowly, "you said your siblings want you to miss an estate hearing." "Yes," I said, "that's exactly the point." He swallowed once and glanced down again. "Because the call record," he said, voice low, "lists the reporting party by name." He lifted his eyes to mine. "And it lists your brother, David Chen, as the caller." The moment he said my brother's name out loud, the room went sharper around the edges. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was the sound of a system realizing it had been used. Officer Martinez, his name tag finally visible now that I was close enough, looked back down at the tablet like he expected the screen to correct itself. It didn't. His colleague, Officer Torres, leaned in and read the line for herself. Her mouth tightened. "David Chen," she repeated quietly. Martinez's jaw flexed once. "Mr. Chen," he said, "have you had any prior incidents at the airport?" "No," I answered, "none." "Any restraining orders, protective orders, pending charges?" "No," I said again. Martinez tapped a different tab. "He also claimed you made specific threats," he said. "He used the phrase, 'he said he'd make us pay.'" I didn't laugh. I didn't roll my eyes. I kept it clean. "My grandmother died," I said. "My siblings want control of her estate. They threatened me all week that if I caused trouble, they'd handle it. This is what handling looks like." Torres's gaze stayed on me, steady. "Where is your hearing?" she asked. "Cascade County Probate Court," I said, "this afternoon." Martinez glanced at the clock on the wall. "Your flight?" he asked. "Boarding soon," I said. "If I miss it, I'm not there when the judge calls the case." Martinez exhaled through his nose and finally did what I asked him to do in the first place. He opened the call record, the original one. A new channel appeared with a timestamp, a dispatch ID, and a button marked Play Audio. He hesitated, not because he didn't want to hear it, because he understood that once he heard it, it would become evidence of my brother's attempt to weaponize them. Martinez pressed play. My brother's voice filled the small room, too clear, too confident, pretending to be concerned. "This is David Chen," he said. "I'm calling because my brother is flying today, and I'm afraid he's going to do something. He's been unstable. He's made comments about getting revenge. I'm worried for the public." Torres's eyes didn't blink. Martinez's expression stayed controlled, but I saw his shoulders tighten. The recording continued. "He's going to a state court today," my brother added, like he was providing helpful context. "He's upset about the inheritance. He's not thinking clearly." Martinez paused the audio. The silence after my brother's voice was loud. Torres spoke first. "He included the word estate," she said, flatly. Martinez nodded. "And he framed it like he's a threat because he wants to attend a hearing," he murmured. I kept my hands visible and my voice level. "He's trying to create a record," I said, "so the judge sees me unstable if I show up late or not at all." Martinez looked at Torres. Torres nodded once. "Okay," Martinez said, "we're going to do a few things. We're going to document that the call appears retaliatory and connected to a civil matter, and we're going to run a quick check to confirm there's nothing else attached to your name." "Do it," I said. Torres stepped out briefly and returned with a form. "This is a voluntary statement, short facts only." I wrote, "I was stopped at security based on a report made by my brother, David Chen.
I deny making threats. I believe the report was filed to interfere with my travel to an estate hearing in Cascade County. I request preservation of the call audio and logs." Martinez scanned it, then tapped on his tablet again. "Mr. Chen," he said, "the call also includes an allegation that you made concerning emergency calls. You said to pull the emergency call record. We did. There's only one relevant call linked to this report." He paused, then said something that made the room tilt again. "It wasn't the first call today," he said. "It was the third." Torres's head lifted. "3 calls from the same number," she said, reading over his shoulder. "2 earlier calls were dropped before dispatch answered." My mouth dried, because that meant my brother had called twice, hung up, and called again, like he was rehearsing the lie until he got someone who would take it seriously. Martinez's voice stayed controlled. "That matters," he said, "because it suggests intent."
He stood, opened the door, and spoke to a TSA supervisor outside in a low voice. I caught fragments. Estate, brother. Retaliatory. No criminal indicators. Then Martinez came back in and said, "We're going to let you continue to your gate." A pulse of relief hit my chest, but I didn't show it. Not yet. "Thank you," I said. Torres held up one finger. "Not finished," she said. "We're also going to give you a case incident number for this stop. If your siblings try to repeat this, you can reference it." Martinez printed a small receipt-like slip, tore it off, and slid it across the desk. "Keep this," he said. "It shows we identified the reporting party and reviewed the audio. If anyone later claims you were detained for violent behavior, this document contradicts that." I stared at the number on the slip and felt something settle into place. This wasn't just me escaping their trap. This was me collecting proof that they tried to build it. Then Torres glanced at Martinez's screen again, and her expression tightened. "Wait," she said. "There's a note attached from the reporting party." Martinez scrolled. "He added a follow-up," he said. He read silently for a second, then looked up at me with a different kind of caution. "Mr. Chen," he said, "your brother told dispatch you might be carrying documents related to the estate hearing and that you might destroy them if confronted." My stomach went cold because my brother wasn't just trying to stop me from traveling. He was trying to make the police think I was dangerous, specifically to justify searching my bag and taking whatever paperwork I had. I leaned forward, voice still calm. "I'm carrying one thing," I said. "A copy of my grandmother's emergency call record from the night she died." Torres's eyes sharpened. "Emergency call record?" she repeated. "Yes," I said. "My siblings don't want it in court." Martinez's posture changed slightly. "Mr. Chen," he said, "why would an estate hearing hinge on an emergency call record from the night your grandmother died?" I met his eyes and answered with the only truth that mattered. "Because my siblings told the court my grandmother was confused and coerced when she changed her will," I said. "And that call record proves who was actually with her and who wasn't." I didn't waste the officer's time with a speech. I slid my boarding pass into my wallet, tucked the incident slip into the back of my phone case, and stood the way you stand when you're trying to look ordinary while your world is burning quietly. Officer Martinez opened the door first. "You're clear to continue," he said. "We'll walk you back to the checkpoint." The word walk mattered, not because I needed an escort, because it meant 2 uniforms would be visible while I moved. It meant my siblings couldn't later claim I fled or acted erratic in public. Officer Torres matched my pace, eyes forward. "You said you're carrying a call record from the night your grandmother died," she said. "Yes," I replied. "A CAD printout and the dispatch summary." Martinez glanced back. "Why do you have it?" he asked. "Because my siblings filed in a state court saying she wasn't lucid when she changed her will," I said. "They're claiming she was confused and manipulated." Torres's gaze sharpened. "And the call record contradicts that," she said. "It contradicts who was with her," I answered. "It contradicts who didn't show up until it was convenient. And it documents something the court hasn't seen yet." Martinez didn't press for details. He just nodded once like he'd decided my story had structure. We reached the conveyor where my tray had been pulled aside. My watch was still there, my boarding pass still flat like a small white joke. A TSA supervisor stepped up, listened to Martinez for 10 seconds, then nodded and waved me through with minimal fuss. I put my shoes on with hands that stayed steady, because that's the part my siblings never understood. Calm isn't weakness. Calm is control. As soon as I cleared the checkpoint, I checked the departures board. My gait had changed. Of course it had. I moved fast without running, weaving through rolling luggage and retail kiosks, heart doing its own private sprint. I kept my eyes on the signs and my mind on one thing: get on the plane, then deal with the rest. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. An email from the airline. Your itinerary has been updated. My stomach tightened. Then another buzz. Your flight has been canceled. I stopped walking so abruptly a woman behind me bumped my shoulder. Canceled? I opened the email and felt my throat go dry as I read the reason line. Canceled per customer request. Customer request. Not weather, not maintenance, not a gate change. A request. I didn't call the airline hotline. Hotlines consume time. I went straight to the nearest service desk, set my ID on the counter, and kept my voice level. My flight was canceled minutes before boarding, I said. I did not request that. The agent looked tired until he saw the timestamp. Then his eyes sharpened. Let me pull it up, he said. He typed, clicked, then frowned at the screen. I'm seeing a cancellation, he said slowly. It was requested by someone who answered your security question. My pulse dropped into my hands. I didn't give anyone my security answers, I said. He glanced up at me uncertain. Do you have an authorized traveler on your profile? He asked. No, I said. Absolutely not. He clicked again. They called in, he said. They had your confirmation code. Of course they did. My siblings never stole with crowbars. They stole with access. I leaned forward, slightly. Can you see the number that called? I asked. He hesitated. We don't always. Please, I said, cutting through gently. This is interference with a court hearing. I was just stopped by airport police because of a false report filed by my brother. I have an incident number. The agent's expression shifted at the word police. I pulled the slip from my phone case and slid it across the counter like a key. He read it, then looked back at his screen with a different kind of seriousness. I can see the caller ID, he said. It's logged in the notes. He paused, then read it out loud. Caller identified himself as David Chen. My jaw tightened. I didn't react big. I didn't give the universe the satisfaction. Did he say why he canceled my ticket? I asked. The agent scrolled. He said you're not well and that you're not safe to travel alone, he read. He asked us to stop you from getting on the plane. I exhaled slowly through my nose. There it was again. Same language, different institution. My brother trying to turn concern into handcuffs. I need you to reverse it, I said, and I need the notes printed. The agent's fingers hovered. Reversing it depends on seat availability, he said. I can pay for a new ticket, I replied. I just need to get there. He clicked, the screen refreshed. Then he said, You're lucky. There's one seat still open. Lucky wasn't the word. My siblings had aimed for delay, not certainty. They wanted me sweating at the edge of the gate, not calmly seated on a plane with proof in my pocket. The agent printed a new boarding pass and slid it to me. Then he printed the internal notes, one thin sheet with a timestamp, a call record, and my brother's name typed neatly in a field that made it look official. Keep that, he quieted. If he does it again, tell them to flag your profile for in-person verification only. I will, I said. He lowered his voice. Sir, I'm sorry, he added. And it wasn't pity, it was recognition. I didn't thank him twice. I didn't linger. I walked fast toward the gate with a new boarding pass in my hand and a second piece of paper that proved my siblings weren't worried about my safety. They were worried about my presence. At the gate, boarding had already started. The scanner beeped when I handed my pass over. Green, the simplest color in the world, and it felt like oxygen. I stepped onto the jet bridge and didn't look back. Once I was in my seat, I finally allowed myself one private second of shaking, just in my fingers. Then I forced them still. I opened my folder and checked that the call record packet was still there, corners crisp, like it wanted to be read by someone who matters. Then my phone buzzed again, and text from my sister.
"We know you're trying to stir things up. Turn around, you'll regret it." I didn't respond. Another buzz, an email from a court notification system I hadn't subscribed to. Notice of hearing update. Estate of Margaret Chen. My stomach tightened as I opened it. The hearing time had been moved earlier by 2 hours. My siblings weren't just trying to keep me off a plane anymore. They were trying to make sure I even landed. I would land too late. The plane pushed back from the gate. As the engine spooled up, I stared at the notification and did the only thing left that still lived inside my control. I called the estate's clerk's office. It rang twice before a woman answered, brisk and tired. "Cascade County Probate," she said. "My name is Marcus Chen," I said. "I'm a beneficiary in the estate hearing today. I just received a notice the hearing was moved earlier. I am currently in transit due to interference, and I need to confirm whether the court will allow remote appearance or hold the matter until I arrive." There was a pause as she typed. Then her tone changed slightly, less routine. "Mr. Chen," she said, "the time change was requested this morning as an emergency accommodation." "By whom?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers kept tapping. Then she said it was requested by counsel for David and Rebecca Chen. My chest went cold because the pattern was now complete. Airport police report, airline cancellation, hearing moved earlier. 3 systems, 1 goal. I kept my voice low. "Has the court granted anything yet?" I asked. The clerk hesitated. "Mr. Chen," she said, "your sibling's attorney also filed a motion to proceed without you based on a claim you were detained by airport police for threat behavior." I stared out the airplane window as the runway blurred into motion, because I wasn't just late anymore, I was being written out in real time. Leveled off, my hands were steady again. Not because I felt safe, because I knew exactly what my siblings were doing. They were building a paper version of me that didn't exist, then walking it into court like it was fact. I paid for the in-flight Wi-Fi before the seatbelt light even turned off. The connection stuttered, then caught. My phone lit up with notifications I didn't open yet. I stayed on the one thread that mattered, the estate clerk. "Ma'am, she had said your sibling's attorney filed a motion to proceed without you based on a claim you were detained for threat-related behavior." I pressed my call button again. "Cascade County Probate," she answered, same brisk voice. "This is Marcus Chen," I said. "I need an email address for emergency filings or supplemental exhibits. I have documentation that contradicts the claim in that motion." There was a pause, keys tapping. "We don't accept filings by email," she said automatically. "I understand," I replied. "I'm not asking you to file it for me. I'm asking where I can send supporting documents for the judge to review in chambers, because the motion contains a factual misrepresentation that is being used to deprive me of my right to appear." Another pause. Her tone shifted a fraction. Less script, more human. "Are you represented?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "My grandmother's counsel is listed on the case, Robert Sullivan." She typed again. "Mr. Sullivan is on today's docket," she said. "He's in the building." "Then please note this," I said, voice controlled. I was stopped at airport security because my brother filed a report. Airport police identified him as the caller. I was not detained for threat behavior. I was cleared and released to travel. My flight was canceled minutes before boarding by David Chen impersonating authorized access to my reservation. Airline printed internal notes. "The motion to proceed without me relies on false statements, and I request the court allow remote appearance or continue the hearing until I arrive." I sent it. The Wi-Fi wheel spun long enough to make my palms damp. Then the message whooshed into sent, and I felt something settle. Not victory, leverage. Next, I called Robert Sullivan. He answered on the first ring, voice low, like he was already standing in a courthouse hallway. "Marcus," he said, no greeting fluff. "I got your message. Tell me where you are." "On the plane," I said. "They moved the hearing earlier and filed a motion claiming I was detained for threat behavior." A pause. I heard paper shuffle. "I just saw it," he said. "They filed it with a declaration from their attorney's office. No police report attached." "Because there isn't one," I said. "I know," he replied, and his tone sharpened into something colder. "Did you send proof?" "Yes," I said.
to the clerk's secure exhibit inbox, airport incident number, airline printout, and my sister's text threatening guardianship. Good, he said. I'm walking into the courtroom now. Stay reachable. My throat tightened. Can the judge let me appear remotely? I asked. Sullivan exhaled. He can, he said. He doesn't have to. But when a party's absence is caused by the opposing party's interference, judges don't like being used. Used. That word made my heart slow, because that was exactly what this was. My siblings didn't just want the estate. They wanted the court's authority to back their story. Listen, Sullivan said, voice dropping. They're also asking to be appointed temporary personal representatives today. They're framing it as urgent administration because you're unstable. My jaw tightened. So they can control the assets immediately, I said. Exactly right, he replied, and they want the judge to sign it without you present. I stared at the tray table in front of me, smooth plastic, harmless, and felt the same cold clarity I'd felt at security. Stop it, I said. I intend to, he replied, but I need one more thing from you. The emergency call record you mentioned. Do you have it with you? Yes, I said, printed. Good, he said, because their entire capacity argument is built on the claim your grandmother was confused and easily influenced. If that record shows she was coherent and who was with her, it matters. I didn't tell Sullivan the part my siblings didn't know yet, that the call record wasn't just a timestamp, it was a story in boxes. Caller name, caller number, location, notes typed by a dispatcher who didn't care about family politics, and one line in those notes had been haunting me since I read it the first time. I kept my voice calm. I can take photos and send it, I said. Do it now, he replied, before we go on record. I pulled the packet from my folder and flattened it on the tray table. My hands didn't shake. I took photos page by page, making sure the case number and the timestamp were clear. Then I sent it in another email to the clerk's inbox and copied Sullivan. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A reply from the clerk. No greeting, no sympathy, just one sentence that changed the air in my chest. The judge has reviewed your exhibits and is considering the motion at the start of the hearing. Please remain available by phone. I stared at that line until it felt real. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was Sullivan, and his voice was different, lower, tighter, like the room around him had just turned quiet. Marcus, he said, your brother just stood up and told the judge you were removed from security in handcuffs. I felt my pulse hit my fingertips. Tell the judge the truth, I said. I am, he replied. But wait. I heard muffled courtroom sound through his phone, a chair scrape, a cough, the faint echo of a judge speaking. Then Sullivan said very softly, the judge just asked the clerk to read the airport incident number into the record. My breath caught, because my brother had tried to plant a story, and now the court was about to read my proof out loud. I stayed on the line with Robert Sullivan while the judge called the courtroom to order. I couldn't hear every word, but I could hear enough to understand when the atmosphere changed. The murmur quieted, chairs stopped shifting, someone coughed and then immediately regretted it. Sullivan whispered, he's looking at the exhibits. My siblings had expected an empty seat. They'd expected to speak into silence, to let their attorney paint me unstable and absent and therefore irrelevant. Instead, I was a voice in the judge's ear through a phone, and my proof was sitting in the court system like a weight no one could pretend not to feel. I heard the judge's voice, older, measured, not unkind. Counsel, he said, I'm looking at a supplemental exhibit containing an airport incident number. I'm also looking at airline notes identifying the caller as David Chen and the note about not safe to travel alone. A beat of silence. Then my brother's voice rose, too fast, too defensive. That's just what he wants you to believe, he said. He's manipulative. The judge didn't take the bait. Mr. Chen, he unevened, you are not under oath right now, but you are in a court of record. Choose your words carefully. Sullivan's breathing was controlled, but I could hear the slight edge of satisfaction in it. He whispered, he's irritated. Good, because irritation is the first crack in arrogance. The judge continued,
Now, I have an airport police incident slip here indicating stopped, identified, and cleared to proceed. No arrest, no handcuffs, no detention for threats. Another pause. I pictured my brother standing in his expensive suit, mouth tightening as the system refused to carry his lie. My sister, probably with her hands folded like prayer, ready to cry on command, and the attorney ready to pivot. The judge's voice sharpened slightly. Now, I have a statement from the reporting party's attorney claiming Mr. Chen was removed from security in handcuffs. That statement appears false. Sullivan whispered, almost too low to hear. He's looking at their motion. My brother tried again. Your Honor, he's unstable. The judge cut him off. Mr. Chen, you do not get to diagnose your brother as a strategy. Silence again. Then the judge said, Counsel, for David and Rebecca Chen, do you maintain this motion? Their attorney spoke, smooth. Your Honor, we filed in good faith based on information provided to our office. Information provided by whom? The judge asked. The attorney hesitated for a fraction of a second. By our clients, Your Honor. And your clients, the judge said, appeared to initiate an airport police report and then contact an airline to cancel Mr. Chen's travel based on claims he was not safe to fly. Sullivan whispered, He's reading the airline note. My brother's voice rose, almost offended. We were trying to protect the public. The judge's tone went colder. Protect the public from what exactly? In a state hearing? That line landed like a slap because the judge didn't need my emotions. He had their timeline. The court clerk read into the record the incident number, the time of the call, and the name of the reporting party. I heard the clerk say clearly, David Chen, and it sounded different in a courtroom than it did in a bank or an airport. In court, names become facts. Sullivan whispered, He's not happy. Then the judge said the sentence my siblings had been trying to prevent all afternoon. Mr. Chen, he said, are you present by phone? Sullivan held the phone closer. Yes, Your Honor, I said, voice steady. I'm on an aircraft in transit due to the interference described in my exhibits. I am available for testimony and I request to be heard. The judge paused. You are heard, he said. My chest tightened with something hot and unfamiliar. Not victory. Relief that the room was finally required to treat me like a person. The judge addressed the courtroom again. Given the credible evidence of interference, he said, I am denying the motion to proceed without Mr. Chen. I heard my sister make a small sound, either a gasp or a performative sob. The judge continued, I'm also denying the request for temporary appointment as personal representatives at this time. Sullivan whispered, There it is. My brother tried one last time. Your Honor, the estate needs someone responsible. The judge cut him off without raising his voice. Mr. Chen, he said, the responsible thing would have been to allow the hearing to proceed fairly. Instead, it appears you attempted to create an absence and then weaponize it. Another pause. Then the judge said, I am continuing this hearing to allow Mr. Chen to appear in person. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9. If Mr. Chen arrives sooner, we can address scheduling, but I will not reward obstruction. Sullivan exhaled quietly. The judge wasn't done. I am directing counsel to provide any communications and records related to the airport report and airline cancellation, he said. Failure to do so may result in sanctions. Additionally, I am referring the conduct described to the appropriate authorities for review. My throat went dry. Referral, sanctions, review, the language of consequences. The judge's voice stayed flat as he concluded. Court is adjourned. Sullivan pulled the phone away from the courtroom sound and spoke softly, almost like he didn't want to spook the moment. Marcus, he said, you're going to land, you're going to sleep, and tomorrow you're going to walk into that courtroom with your head up. What about my siblings? I asked. Sullivan didn't dramatize it. He just said, they made this bigger than inheritance. When the call ended, I sat back in my seat and stared at the folder on my tray table. My siblings had tried to stop me with uniforms and cancellations and motions. They tried to make me look like a threat so the court would rush past me. Instead, the court slowed down and wrote their names into the record. And for the first time since my grandmother died, the most powerful thing in the room wasn't my brother's voice. It was the record.
After I landed, I slept with the folder on the nightstand like it could grow legs. The next morning, I walked into Cascade County Probate with my attorney beside me and the airport incident slip in my pocket. The judge started by stating one thing on the record: no more emergency accommodations requested by either party without notice to both sides. Then he opened my grandmother's file, looked at the signature page, and said, "Mr. Chen is a named beneficiary. We will proceed accordingly." If you made it to the end, tell me this in the comments. Would you have gotten on that plane anyway, or would you have turned back? And what would you do next if your own family tried to erase you from court like that? If you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for the Mantle Grand.